Chapter 2 The Legend of the Great River. The Great River was such a sight for the animals, most of whom had not seen it before. They lined along its banks, marveling at its beauty and origins. Many animals crowded around Grandma Tortoise for an explanation. Ogila the hare came out of his workshop and looked around. "Have you seen the weaver bird?" he asked the robin. "Always a gossiper. She must have gone somewhere to collect more gossip." "I'll take a walk," said the hare, but he was already bounding downstream. "This is the longest river in the world," said Grandma Tortoise. "Yet I hate to call it just a river, because it is more than that." "Where does it come from? And where is it going?" asked the squirrels. Grandma Tortoise dipped in the water and swam on her back. She felt so refreshed. "Why, this is our own water," she said. "Water from our own great lake." Little Squirrel looked at the great river and touched it with his slender paws. It was like a long winding lake, but flowing on endlessly. It also had dams large enough for swimming for years without covering their whole lengths. Floating islands big enough to make homes for all squirrels in the world wandered along its length and from bank to bank. He wanted to ride on them. "The residents of this river must be a happy lot," he concluded. He felt the urge to stay here forever, but then he saw something moving suspiciously underwater. "Look, Grandma," he said, pointing to the moving object. Grandma Tortoise quickly clambered up the riverbank. "The great river crocodiles," she said. "I don't trust them." She wiped the water from her body and went on. "The great river was a gift from our giant Lolwe to King Pharaoh." Every savanna animal knew who the giant was because it was he who urinated the great lake and saved people from drought and famine. But they didn't know about the great river being a gift to Pharaoh. "You see," explained Grandma Tortoise, "the giant had fallen in love with King Pharaoh's daughter, the most beautiful Auranam. In those days, you had to give your in-laws the best gift to have their daughter. Lolwe would give anything to have Pharaoh's girl. Pharaoh had water problems and he had heard of Lolwe's abilities. He said to Lolwe, 'Give us some water and the maiden will be yours.' Well, Lolwe wanted to pass water there and then to make another lake, the greatest of them all, for he loved that Pharaoh girl so much. But that would be bad manners in front of his in-laws. So he got hold of the pot that held the great lake and tilted it towards Pharaoh's kingdom. The water spilled and flowed on up to the kingdom. That was the great river, our water, and wherever it touched, there was happiness. There was life. And the Pharaoh made use of the water so well that he became a great king, known all over the world, and his people were wonderful in words and deeds. In those days, Giant Lolwe brought his bride to the savannah where he stayed with her, using Mount Huma as his seat and home. And wherever his in-laws wanted more water, he simply stood and poured more water to our tilted giant pot, the Great Lake, and it would just spill over. Pharaoh would get more water and soil, timber, animals, and fish too would flow with the floods to his kingdom, and Lolwe would just follow the great river and reach Pharaoh's kingdom in no time, because his in-laws loved to see him so much for his magical ways. Time came when other kings became jealous of this gift to the Pharaoh, and they began to look for ways of winning over Lolwe so that he could do the same magic to them. Well, maybe there was something in beautiful maidens that Lolwe liked, so they placed their maidens where Lolwe would pass. That means they threw these maidens into the giant river, so Lolwe would just pick them up. For some time that worked, and there was such happiness and civilization in the great river valley. And Auranam, she got mad at that and immediately consulted a witch. "My husband is having other maidens," she said. "Can you help me?" Easy job, said the witch. We shall remove them out of Lolue's way. We shall pick them before Lolue picks them. Let them place the maidens in the water again. The witch bred voracious beasts and put them in the water. They are the great river crocodiles. They ate up all the maidens put in the river. Why do they move so secretly? Asked little squirrels. They are looking for food. I don't trust them. They want to feed you on their young ones, and boy, are they many. These creatures have never heard of birth control. A female can lay more than 60 eggs and hatch them all, and then she has to feed them all. And the more than 60 will give birth to young ones. More than 60 times, more than 60 times, more than 60, forever. How many is that? Little squirrel scratched his head a lot, but came up with no answer. But he was wondering what his friend the mongoose would do with 60 times 60 eggs. Tatai says, stories always made his imagination work so fast. Ogila the hare shot through the bushes with an idea. This is the right time. I shall collect the right materials and then take them to the weaver bird. She will weave baskets and nests that will keep her busy. His eyes were keen on some special grasses, but he loved the palm leaves more. They split easily without damage and are strong like sisal ropes. Weavers like palms more than grass blades. The only problem was that the palms were far away. He had looked at his map and saw them farther downstream. There was no telling what would happen to him in those strange lands. But he didn't need company. My line is a line of adventurers, he said proudly. He wanted to surprise the weaver bird with the materials and everybody with the gifts. He passed through some thick reeds and for a moment thought that their leaves were as good as palm fronds. But he had decided on the palms. They were beautiful, especially those that looked like green ferns. He could even use some when it came too hot. He just had to get them. He cleared the reeds in one leap, and when he landed so far away, he thought he was a kangaroo. Then he saw in the distance, on the edge of the river, more palm trees than he had ever seen in his life. Good! He bounded to a cluster of the greenest palms. At first, he thought he should just cut the palm leaves and leave. He was running short of time. Soon, the animals would decide to move on, and Prince Lion would roar, "Where is Ogila? Where is Ogila?" roared the lion, cutting Grandma's stories short. He wanted the animals to be organized for the crossing. He too never trusted the great river crocodiles. Well, said the hyena, laughing. He's probably. He whined, defeated on what to say, and then, surprising even himself, he blurted out, "Drowning in the river." "Shut up," said the lion. "Such thoughtless remarks will land you in trouble." The lion called the savannah crocodiles and ordered them to look for a suitable ford. "You shall guard the ford as the animals cross," he said. The savannah crocodiles opened their mouths wide in a show of dominance to their great river cousins. There was a far more pleasant sight than Ogila the hare had ever dreamed of in his life. Fruits, yellow and orange in ripeness, beckoned to him from the stems of the palm trees. The aroma was so pleasant that he hesitated to spoil it by eating the fruits. He let out a whistle in happiness and picked a fruit to nibble at. Sweet was the moment. Down below, the water flowed on. Beetles played on the surface as butterflies fluttered around. A breeze cooled his body, which had heated up during the flight. What a good place to put up a workshop and work on inventions, he thought. Yet there was a problem. Why were there no animals and birds in this seemingly habitable place? Ogila hated such silence and stillness, though it would be best for a working mind like his. He hesitated to pick another fruit. Suddenly, the water threw up an object in a frenzied splash. It was grey, like the color of the water and the sky. It flew, nay, straightened itself in a speed remarkable for its large size. In no time, Ogila the hare found himself in the rough grip of a giant hand. His captor, now satisfied with the fulfilled intention, walked slowly and quietly out the water and lay under the palm trees. He displayed his victim around as though to some unseen beings. Ogila the hare, shocked beyond making any sound, was choking in the hot grip of the monster. "We are pleased," the monster said. "We are going to feast." Who are you?" asked Ogila the hare, recovering from his shock. He had never been captured before and had never imagined it. Less still had he imagined that he, the cleverest of the animals, would be so stupid to have left off his guard. "Always stick together," he had told the animals, and now he had broken his own rule with consequences. He peered out of the finger of the giant. He was such an ugly monster, a creature from the water, and yet not a crocodile, but worse than a crocodile. He was willing to die in the hands or in the jaws of any other creature, but not this one. "We are a pole," said the monster. "We are happy." "I am only seeing one apple," said Ogila the hare, wondering whether so many of such big creatures would fit in the whole world, let alone this palm grove. He had heard of the apple in Grandma Tortoise's tales, but he had never thought they were real and this big. "Well, no need to see all of us, but since you may feed one of us, I could introduce you to some of us," he said. "We are my mouth, my jaws, my eyes, my noses, my toes, my fingers, my stomachs." Ogila the hare was wondering how many organs the creatures had when he raised him to one of his eyes. They were deep blue and watery. Indeed, the eye looked so deep, and Ogila the hare could see all sorts of creatures swimming there and trying to come out. He looked carefully and saw it was not a reflection that was deceiving him. It was a reality. The creature's eye was a sea out of which some creatures were trying to swim. They were so distressed. Some were drowning. "What an inquisitive food," said Apple. "Do you want me to feed you to my eye? I can just deposit you there." Oh no, please," pleaded Ogila the hare, seeing that there would be no way of swimming out of the monster's eye. "Well, hares are troublesome to my eye. I prefer fish there," said the monster. "Maybe I should feed you to my nose," he said, lowering Ogila to the nose. The nose was big, clogged, and stinking. Ogila almost threw up the palm fruits he had eaten, an act which would have been very welcome by the monster, for he loved so much the digested food of his victims. The hare could see many indescribable creatures caught up and struggling to come out of the thick mucus. Please don't," cried Ogila the hare, imagining how cruel it would be to die in such a horrible place. "Well, hares are troublesome to my nose," said the monster. "Maybe I should feed you to my ears." His hands traveled with him over the ears. He counted 5 of them and landed with him in one of them. The ear was full of wax, black like tar and melting. Several creatures were caught up in it and were screaming helplessly. Please don't," screamed Ogila the hare. "Well, hares are troublesome to my ears," said the monster. "Maybe I should feed you to my jaws, huh? You love my mouth and jaws, don't you?" Ogila did not want to imagine what the mouth and jaws would be like, but he certainly didn't love them. The monster was slowly lowering him to his mouth, and it was taking forever. Moreover, there were several mouths, about 20, and he didn't know which one he was going to land in. He was in such a pain. He was horrified to see a giant celebrate feasting on a creature the size of the tip of his finger. "Why do you want to feast on me?" he said, thinking of how to delay his death. "I'm just a small animal."
"You ate our palm fruits. That's good. No, we eat you. That's good. Nothing is small for us. We eat 100,009 fishes a day, 2,092 fruits, 3,000 branches and leaves, 201 birds, 4,044 small animals. We avoid lions only. They are troublesome creatures."
Ogyla the hare was struck by 1,000 ideas at once, and for the first time since he was captured, he saw himself joining his fellow animals and continuing with the journey. "Well, seeing that you are so many and you feast on so many creatures," said Ogyla the hare, "I have good news for you." The monster laughed, and it was not funny. It was such a din that for a moment Ogyla the hare was deaf.
"Well, hares are troublesome creatures, but they still serve as food. Can food have ideas?"
His hand had reached one of the mouths, and it was probably the biggest. It was the size of a lake, and the teeth were like big, sharp-ended rocks jutting out along its walls. The tongue formed a bed to saliva, which was dirty, but abundant enough for a boat to ride on. And like other places, there were no living creatures here, only bones, crushed limbs, and mangled flesh. Ogyla's hopes disappeared.
"Say it quick," boomed Apolapol. "My mouth and jaws want you. We have to go hunting or we'll die of hunger."
"There are so many of us," said Ogyla, speaking very fast. "Enough for all of you. If you spare my life, I can bring them all to you." The monster hesitated and then took Ogyla away from the mouth.
"Interrogation,"
he said gleefully.
"My mouth wanted you so much I forgot to ask. Who are you? Where from?"
Ogyla quickly explained. "I am Ogyla the spy in a large caravan of animals. Don't you see how many animals, how much food you can have for? We want to settle around, and I was sent to spy around, and I'm not. And if I'm not seen, the animals are going to be worried. They're going to be suspicious. Look for me. Don't you see how many animals, how much food you lose? And worse, we have 1,000,000 lions guarding us."
"Slow down," said Apolapol. "I've eaten many creatures, only have not digested them. I want to digest, how I want to, but I'll only do it when the age of the locusts come. When am I telling you all this?" "We were told that the age would only come when a large caravan would be moving to the north. I know food can get very creative when they sense danger, but tell me the truth or else." He was hovering the hair above his mouth. "True," said the hare, ashamed that he had lied and may soon lie again. "We are the animals traveling to the north. Only wanted to be here and rest a bit, so I was spying around, but can also turn around and be your spy if you spare my life. Our lions are fierce, and I heard them say the only creature they want to tear to pieces is Apolapol, and they put a price for anybody to disappear in the stomach of Apolapol. This creature would be rewarded, but now, if you spare my life, I'll just go back and tell the caravan to move on." "Slow down," said Apolapol. "You talk too much for your size. Do you think you can scare me? I've got a mind to eat you now, and then the whole caravan."
He lowered the hare to the lips and touched him with them the way a browser touches the grass with its lips before eating it. Ogilah felt the hot breath coming from the open mouth. It was like steam, cooking him before he could be eaten. He thought, the lion must now be asking, "Where is Ogilah? And I'll never be found," he thought sadly. "Where is Ogilah?" roared Prince Lion at the bank of the great river. "He must have retired to some bush to think about the gift," said the weaver bird, who had flown ahead with some birds but had come back because he found their company boring. This time the lion was not angry, but alarmed that the hare could be left behind. But he didn't want to show any feelings to the animals, and so he roared, "Crows!" Mighty Odanga the elephant and other big animals waded through, but had to swim at some points where it was so deep. But not all animals were swimmers, and so the otters, the hippos, the savanna crocodiles, and all the fishes and water animals helped them along from beach to beach and from bank to bank. Ogilah the hare jumped on top of the last savanna crocodile. "Where are you coming from?" asked Prince Lion, who had remained behind to see the last animals cross safely. "It is like this." "It is like this," mimicked the lion. "Your job here is to make the gift, not to get lost and delay the journey. Where is the gift?" "It is the materials I was looking for," said the hare. "And where are the materials?" "I found a monster. He caught me, but I escaped." "Go and tell those tales to the squirrels. Don't joke around. I'm warning you." And he climbed on top of the hippo and crossed the river. Ogilah the hare climbed to his workshop, tired and angry. "The lion thinks I'm only a joker," he thought bitterly. But he was also ashamed. How could he, of all the people, have broken the rule of sticking together? And how could he boast of escaping, yet the monster had only released him? Ogilah thought of how the apulapul had come close to eating him up, even when he had threatened him that 1,000,000 lions would come and revenge for his death. The monster was getting angrier and definitely hungrier at the mention of rhinos, elephants, leopards, and other fierce animals. When the monster was about to drop him into his mouth, he had said, "Well, I've never eaten a more entertaining food than you, Ogilah. But I'm sorry, my hunger for food is more than my hunger for entertainment. We do not eat stories, though. I wouldn't mind them if they were edible. Say your last word anyway." In the twinkling of Apulapul's eyes, the hare made 1,000 guesses on what would save him. At last, he tried. "I know of an edible story, and his little Apulapul, who was tamed by my grandfather, the magician, and became a great friend of mine in our home, where there were so many stories he could eat them for breakfast, lunch, supper, and he himself became a story that can be eaten." "Stop," said the monster, taking Ogilah away from his mouth. "Have you said little Apulapul lives with you?" "Yes, and he's a great friend of mine back at home." "And your grandfather, does he tame people?" "Yes," Ogilah said eagerly. "That's what he does best." "You must go back and tell him to tame little Apulapul for me," said the monster sadly. "When he's done that, you must bring little Apulapul to me." "Yes, I know how to bring him here to you. That's my job." "Go without delay and tell the caravan to move on," said the monster, dropping Ogilah to the ground. "Just make sure the animals move on to the north. And if you don't come back with little Apulapul, I'll come for you and eat you up." "Yes, of course. I must go back home and the caravan must move on to the north." Ogilah did not drop but flew from Apulapul's large fingers. Now, in his workshop, Ogilah knew why he had lied to Apulapul, but he didn't know why he had made up the story of little Apulapul and how it had turned out to be real. He had not known that there was such a person in the stories, let alone in real life. And of course, he was not going to be bothered looking for such a person. What bothered him was why the monster had suddenly softened and released him at the mention of little Apulapul. What a story! Would he tell it to the animals or just keep it secret? Or would he tell it as a gift to Karhu? Kapur, Kapur, we see mountains, valleys, cliffs, thorny landscapes, announced the giraffes, who were always ahead of all the other animals, except for some birds who patrol the skies. Presently, the caravan reached the rough terrains at the edge of the great valley. The animals clambered up the hills and cliffs, breathing heavily. At some points, the escarpments were so steep that some animals fell to the floor. The big animals offered their backs so the small ones rode on them. The monkeys made ropes and pulled others to safety. The ant bears dug and cut tunnels through the impossible hills and mountains. And when sheer strength was needed, the buffaloes, the rhinos, the roan antelopes, the elephants, and the hippos combined and brought steep hills down, filled the gorges with the rubble, and made bridges. All the while, Ogila the hare was thinking about the gift in his workshop. What gift do you think Ogila is working on? Asked the weaver bird. Well, said the crane bird, snapping his wings, it may be one of those tricks of his. He will turn into dry meat, offer himself to Karhu, and when the bear is about to eat him, he will turn into his true self again and ask, Well, Karhu, do you always eat your friends? The animals all laughed because they knew the source of the joke. It was a story about one of Ogila's ancestors who had gone on a journey to the sky together with a spider. The spider made a special web that the animals used like a bridge between the earth and the sky. After some time in the sky, the animals disagreed among themselves, and the spider escaped back to earth with his web, leaving Ogila's ancestors stranded. He turned into dry meat so that he would not fall hard. Later, a woman picked the dry meat and took it home. It was such a good dry meat to be cooked in milk and ghee. Everybody in the clan was expecting a great feast. The woman cooked the meat with all the culinary skills she had learnt in her life, and then served it to important people in her family and the guests. But before anybody tasted the meat, Ogila's ancestor turned into his real self again, resurrected his body, and fled, leaving everybody with their mouths open. That would be a good one, said the robin chat, still laughing about the joke. I think it would be a disaster, said the weaver bird. Ogila is wise enough not to make such a practical joke. Ogila came down from his workshop, saying, It is not only for me to make a gift. It is a collective responsibility. Who can carve for us bear in the snow? Bear in the snow? Collective responsibility? Carving? Asked the little squirrels. The woodpecker did not understand what a collective responsibility meant, but he was good at carving. I can make a good carving of bear in the snow, he said. He took a piece of wood and began working on it. He tapped on it with his beaks, making vague patterns of an animal. The robin chat drew closer, much impressed. Carving is like composing a song, he said. You start with some vague idea, and then it takes shape. He began to make sounds and turned to the hare. I can sing about bear in the snow. Only make sure there is a line about friendship and cooperation, said the hare. We should sing about making friends, peace, and tolerance. The robin chat began to compose some lines. Bear in the snow is a friend. We should seek to know each other. Quiet, said the woodpecker. I like working on in silence. But carving the image of the bear was so much sound and rhythm. As the woodpecker tapped on the wood, scraping portions of it, so did the robin chat compose his lines of the song about the bear in the snow. As the image of the bear was ready, So too was Robin Chat's song. The woodpecker showed the image to the excited animals. Everybody was impressed, except the weaver bird. "My yellow wings," she said. "This is not the bear in the snow." "Yes, it is bear in the snow," said Robin Chat, talking about his song rather than the carving. He waved the papyrus reed he was carrying in the wind, and it made sweet whistling music. He sang, "Bear in the snow is a friend. We seek to know. Look at his fur. It is all snow. Look at his den. It is all snow." The birds took up this song and chorused it as they flew higher and higher in the air. The spindly leaves of the papyrus reeds made such beautiful music in the wind that even the animals on the land found themselves dancing madly to it. Within a short time, the animals had covered a very long distance without knowing it. It was as though the song was an aircraft that had carried them far over the waters and land. The wood carving may have been very good, but the song was a greater success. The woodpecker went around showing the image of bear in the snow. Fortunately, the success of the song now went to the carving too, so that everybody admiringly handled it and passed it on to another admirer. Only the weaver bird still looked at it with some dislike. "It is not bear in the snow," muttered the weaver bird. "It is the lion in a sea of milk." "You are jealous," said the woodpecker, handing the carving to Ogila the hare. "A good idea for a gift," said the hare, keeping the carving in the workshop. "You can sing about anything," said the weaver bird, "but you can't carve an image of what you don't know." The animals went on singing the new hit, "Bear in the Snow." "Bear in the snow is a friend. We seek to know. Look at his fur. It is all snow. Look at his den. It is all snow. Bear in the snow is a friend. We seek to know."